Why is it that if a woman dresses sexy or even topless in public, you support it, but if a female video game character is dressed sexy, then you want her clothed more modestly?
Because of who is making the call, the frequency of this occurring, and the context of how it occurs. Currently, the field is dominated by men who mostly make games for men. Therefore, their decisions seem to typically be driven by sexual fantasies, which reduces the depth of a character. And that seems to be the typical case, but not always. There are games which break this trend, such as Bayonetta, the character being created by Mari Shimazaki. But compare her to, say, any number of female characters in video games, and you find them to be rather lacking. That brings us round to the context. Not all characters were created equal, and not all characters' backstories fit their designs, as is shown in countless RPGs with the male and female armor disparity. Less armor equals higher protection. So we need a better designed mix of female characters, because whilst Bayonetta's character is decent, so are characters like Samantha Clark from the Supreme Commander universe and Hammer from Fable 2. Far too often, female characters are hypersexualized for no reason as to character or gameplay, which damages gaming as a collective.
What is your favorite song to sing really loud when you're confronted with a different point of view? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream!
There can only be one answer. Link in the description below. Don't worry, this video can wait.
Why are you afraid of dissenting opinions? Your continued attempts to silence all opposition, either by smearing them publicly or labeling their content as hate speech and having it removed, only serves to insulate your bubble even more and maintain your echo chamber. It also prevents you from taking on new information and hearing different points of view that are sometimes superior to yours, which tends to happen whenever I talk.
If the content is hateful, I shall call it out as hateful. But I love the fact that your idea of censorship involves me using my own free speech to note my disagreement. As for the content's removal, again, that is entirely up to the people who run the platform. If a journal retracts an article for any reason, that is not censorship. However, it can be part of censorship on a wider scale. That nuance must be noted as well. For example, it can be part of a campaign involving death threats, doxing, and other forms of harassment. Just think of the Mariam Namazi case. But utilizing the user agreement we all signed when we joined a website does not somehow violate free speech. It can be a shitty thing to do, but that depends on what is being said, and yes, that does matter. Freedom of speech does not free you from consequences of your speech. If that were the case, you'd never be able to hold a head of state accountable for declaring war because, hey, that's just my freedom of speech. I in no way took part in any of the violence myself, I just instigated it. Now, that is the extreme example, but the principle is much the same when you attempt to justify violence against ethnic minorities, women, and LGBT+ individuals. As for superior points, I can bring up countless studies to back up my claims, and all you would have to do is insult me for some part of my character, or make up a straw man, and I'd be crushed beneath a mountain of personal attacks. That is the game you play, as demonstrated for your collective work here, and that to me shows greater inability.
What is reverse racism? Like, what the actual fuck is it? It's just racism, right? I mean, am I going crazy here? Am I taking crazy pills?
Reverse racism can be used in two ways. It can be used to simply try and describe racial prejudice against the status quo on an individual level, a definition which lacks understanding of the structural elements of racism, or it can be used to describe society attempting to balance out social ills. For example, the police know institutional racism exists in the demographics of stop and search, thus take measures to balance out stop and search statistics. I view that as tackling racism and racial perceptions, but others view that as targeting white people. So, again, hope that clarifies.
Do any of you people actually remember all the pronouns? You know the list, right? The one with 76 fucking genders.
No need. I utilize gender neutral until I get a chance to check with someone, and then I utilize whatever they ask. We already have a similar pattern of behavior with names. I mean, do you memorize every possible name out there, or do you just respect people when they give you a name? Fact is, if you are going to complain about genders existing in double digits, you'd have to be a hypocrite to not then go after the millions of names that exist.
Why do you feel entitled to control what artists and entertainers are allowed to express? Why do you think your sensibilities should be placed above the sensibilities of actual creators?
Cue the hypocrisy of a bunch of hypersensitive men crying about the fact that a remake has a female cast, and yes, that is why. Countless other beloved movies are remade or have sequels with shitty effects, and it gets a minor groan. Give it an all-female cast, however, and they'll freak the hell out before it's even released, only to get proven wrong when the film actually comes out and the majority of people like it. Whilst I perceive your reaction as disproportionate, I do not have an issue with you bringing it up in discussion. Why? Art is a collective of culture, whether it be music, writing, film, video games, etc. Therefore, women, LGBT+ individuals, and ethnic minorities have as much right to discuss it as well as be part of it. Now, returning to you, from this question and your previous actions over such things as the Ghostbuster trailer, that tells me you have an exclusive view of art. You view art as the medium for the self-appointed elite, which just so happens to include pretty much everyone in this video. I meanwhile view art as an inclusive medium to be shared by everyone, which is why I don't scoff when a black person brings up the lack of big-time black actors in film. Your discussion is welcome, so long as you give everyone else the same decency.
Have you ever considered that using the terms racism and sexism as haphazardly as you do to describe everything under the sun that makes you feel uncomfortable devalues the word to the point that it actually hurts the people who actually suffer from real sexism and real racism? Have you ever fucking thought of that? Those are my questions, TJ. I hope you liked them. Hope I delivered on your fucking video.
Yes, I have given it thought, and probably more than you have. But your question is completely presuppositionalist in its demands that I acknowledge your dictation of what sexism, racism, homophobia, biphobia, transphobia is. You are demanding the right to define away your actions and the actions of others. Counter question. As someone who was both put in a domestic violence refuge by a man and then later sexually assaulted by a woman as a child, do you think using me as an object of argument to argue for the base systems which allowed for my abuse devalues me as a human being? Because I do. Meanwhile, I don't get that from people calling out sexual harassment, regardless of how small, and I put small in quotations, of an act it was. Little things add up to big things. That is the basic principle of the universe. They are trying to fight what I went through, regardless of how small you see the specific case. You, on the other hand, are attempting to maintain those microaggressions and, by proxy, the formation of more people like myself. Now, I am gender fluid, and whether or not you regard that as actually being something, if you don't, then you view me as a cis male, and that's misgendering me, and that's wrong. But let's take your argument at face value. Why, if I am a cis man, I'm not gender fluid, alternating between both genders, why, as a cis man, do I absolutely despise you lot? As someone who went through these abuses, as someone who lived through that, why do I find support in feminism, but not anti-feminism, menimism, MRAs, etc.? Why is that the case? Could it possibly be that I find your movement a reactionary attempt to create more apathy, rather than actually help an issue? Could that be why? Yeah, I have questions and sometimes I have doubts. The woman who sexually assaulted me and my older brother didn't do me the decency of doing so herself by her own hand. Instead, she got me to do things to my brother as she pinned him down. Can you imagine how it feels for me sitting a conversation discussing sexual assault, knowing that I was not simply a victim, I was both a victim and an instrument? Naive, yes, but my memories don't play back to me with that naivety. That's why when I hear people such as yourselves complain about how you feel like a criminal because every little thing you do seems to be wrong, I just want to scream at you that you have no idea what that is actually like, and no, that's not a valid reason to stop fighting it, regardless of how you like to pretend. Sometimes the biggest abuses are just small enough to handle, and it's the little things that push us over the edge.
Have you guys tried drinking this shit? It's great.
Thanks for displaying the standards of discussion you hold to. So there you have it, 28 questions answered. I may have done irreparable damage to my channel in the process, but I just couldn't let such straw men stand unchallenged to become the standards by which the secular community is known. I hope I had some success. But in closing, I have one final question for the people behind the original video. The question is, can you learn?